Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? It's your boy Othree. Welcome back to Platicas. This is Platica number 15. I'm here with my boy P-Dog, Pat Monaghan. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
How we doing, Fool? I appreciate you having me. Hey, man, I know we go way back, and it's been, anything you're working creatively on, I would always love to be a part of. So I appreciate you having me. Quick introduction. O3 and I have known each other since college. We go back, way back to the Ohio Wesleyan days, and now I work in the cannabis industry. Have a bunch of different types of experience from hemp to processing, dispensary, and now onto consultation. So let's get into it, man. I'm excited to cover whatever you got planned for us today.
Yeah, I met my boy P-Dog. I'm a year older, right? A year older than you?
Yeah, 1 year.
Uh, a year
1 year,
older than
my
him.
elder.
And real cool. I know like I don't really get too much into like the whole fraternity oh woo shit, but my boy P Dog was there for a lot of a lot of the rowdy days.
The
So he saw me at my peak and shit. So
regime.
the peak of the rowdy shit. But enough of that, dog. Like let's get into it. It's a topic that I like to talk about with all my guests, like at least for the introductory platicas. Um, and it's about family because to
Hmm.
me, family is real important. And my question to you is, what is your definition of family?
Yeah, no, I think family has a lot of different definitions depending upon how you grew up, right? Some people are blessed with a massive family that surrounds them, 30 cousins, whatever it may be. Mine was a little different. I was an only child, and all my cousins pretty much were way older than me already by the time I came around. And so, family for me quickly became those that committed their time to me, whether it be friends, neighbors, whomever I saw helping out our family quickly kind of grew by extension into my family. I always like to joke around, kind of gets into the fraternity thing too, but I got to, some people are blessed with siblings when they're born. I got to pick my brothers as I went along. And so I always considered it a blessing. And it really gave me a perspective that I think allowed me to forge better connections with folks than if I had just had that massive family and took that for granted. So, family is what you make it because you see nowadays blood relatives, fighting, not keeping in touch. And oftentimes the families are those that actually are right down the street or right down the block. So family can mean a lot of things. And I think it's whatever you make it into.
I know there's that stereotype that Mexicans have a big family. I'm not any different, dog. I'm not any different. It's just we for our shit is like we got like second cousins and fucking like all kinds of shit. So our family is just as big as fuck, as massive because titles go like they extend way farther than just like immediate. You know what I'm saying? But my
Yeah,
immediate
no,
family is pretty small,
absolutely.
dog. Like so.
Yeah, no, but it's to your point too. My God family growing up was first generation Cuban. And so I got to experience that beautiful culture and like, you know, every level of abuelo, abuelito, abuelita, like everything. I mean, grandparents, great grandparents, everyone stuck around and every holiday they were celebrating. So I loved that opportunity and being a part of that. And I was blessed that they kind of took me in as their own as well. And I got to celebrate all those New Year's with them and so on and so forth. So yeah, and I think that, to my earlier point, that gave me I wouldn't have been able to appreciate that as much if that was just a regular thing that my family did, right? And so I got to go experience that and see for what it is firsthand. And yeah, man, no, I loved everything about it.
You say your godparents are Cuban, right? So you grew up in Florida,
Yeah,
right?
Southeast Florida. Yep. Just north of Miami by about an hour in what used to be a small little like old surfer and fisherman town called Delray Beach. Now it's basically a mini Boca Raton. And so, now they got the Gucci stores and shit like that. That used to be the surf shops or whatever, or the liquor stores. But yeah, no, it's been it's I loved South Florida growing up down there, being a part of the ocean. You grew up near a coast, you're near a coast right now. I am itching to get back there. I'm still in central Ohio, so I am itching to get back to some type of ocean at some point, my man.
How was it like? Well, before we move into how it was being a kid and a teenager there, Where's your parents from, dog? Like your immediate family?
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's actually from Buffalo, New York,
Mm.
and she taught me everything I knew about football early on. So I quickly became a Bills fan. Go Bills, love Mafia. Love that we will constantly be tortured probably for the rest of my life, and I'll never get a Super Bowl, but hopefully one before I die, right?
Yeah.
And so she's from Buffalo, and my pops was actually more of an Air Force brat. So he was born in Biloxi, Mississippi, then was in Japan for like 4 or 5 years, and then he settled down near Patrick Air Force Base, hence where one of the inspirations for my name came from in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And he grew up basically a surf rat there. And yeah, they eventually met each other while he was working as an attorney in West Palm, and my mom was teaching and then also working at the law office at night. So she was doing double duty, and they met basically there and stayed in Florida, thank God, and gave me the blessing of being near the ocean for a large chunk of my life.
It's crazy that you bring up the whole like where you got your name from because this is like a little journey that I went on last month to try to figure out
Yeah,
the definition of what my name what it means, right? So I did like
yeah,
little research and my name Omar, like my government name, like not to put it out there like that, but
sure.
it means long living and eloquent
That's
speaker.
beautiful.
You
That's
feel me?
beautiful, and you fulfill both of those.
I swear to God, dog, I was like, yo, this is destiny, and my boy was meant to be.
It
So
was written.
I asked my mom, I was like, where the fuck y'all got the name from? It's just random, it was just random, but it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And it's like a little conversation that I would have with some of my coworkers, some of the youth that I work with. So I'm gonna ask you that, like, random. I know this wasn't in the notes or whatever, but you were, do you know what Patrick means? Like, do you know where it comes from?
So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty as pasty Irish white Catholic as it gets, right? And so it pretty much comes from St. Patrick, and also my dad admits after a few bourbons that some of the inspiration came from Patrick Air Force Base and his closeness to that growing up. And then Edward, my middle name, was my grandfather's name, who flew B-17 bombers in World War II. So I'm
Mm,
honored to carry his name. He actually at the time, really quick side tangent here, at the time when he enlisted, basically the lifespan for a B-17 bomber was 2 missions on average, right?
mm,
And in order to fulfill your enlistment, I believe you had to hit, I think it was like 18 or 20 missions, or maybe it was 30, something like that, right? And he hit that, but a lot of his crew hadn't hit that before, and they were going to end up staying. And so he stayed on board and re-enlisted essentially into some of the most dangerous flying missions that this world's ever seen for 20 more missions to be a part of his team. And
that's
so,
crazy.
that's just like one little thing that like I carry with me and am honored to have that as a part of my name. And then Monaghan is actually one of 16 counties in Ireland. And so I can trace it back. I've got an uncle who's like a super ancestry.com nerd and just
Yeah,
has a whole library of
yeah.
like, you start here, he's got the whole tree. So I really love being able to track all that. Definitely is. I think it's important that whether it's pretty or not, you got to know where you came from.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful, dog. I know growing up, at least being the first gen here in this country, like my parents, because they're born on the same block, they're from the same spot in Mexico, Irapuato, Guanajuato, Mexico. Like they would always talk about, because I still got a gang of family, so it's like easy for me to trace where I come from, like the little ranches, they're called
Right.
ranchos and shit, little towns. And I've always, some people don't have the luxury to be able to trace their lineage, their background. And this conversations I never had with like all you fools and shit, like the white folks and shit. When I was out there, we never was like able to be like, "Hey, where's your family from?" Dog, like where they from? You know what I'm saying? What part of the world? So it's dope to hear that you could be able to trace your ancestry, whatever the fuck .com
Yeah.
to certain parts of Ireland. That's beautiful, dog. Have you ever been there?
I have not. That's on my dad and I's bucket list. I gotta get him over there. I'm thinking maybe for his 75th or something like that. Because my
Yeah.
pops was old when he had me. He was 40 when he had me. So he's a little bit up there in age, but I'd love to get him over there at some point, just for the hell of it. You gotta say you did it once, right? And I mean in America, there's so much if you grow up in Europe, it's normal to just hop around from country to country, right? But here, growing up here, it's like it's a big deal to get something to hop on over the pond and like set away that much time from work and whatever it may be. So it's gonna be something we'll make happen for sure.
You know any Irish? Like any like what is that?
No,
The language that's the language, right? Irish? They don't it's not like
it's English, but I mean, you there are some like Celtic, like phrases and whatnot like that. I wouldn't be able to speak very highly on it. I know generally the main everything over there is in English. It's got a great, fantastic accent, but
yeah. I
yeah,
think the only thing
no,
I know about Ireland, dog, like obviously the flag. And then I
hmm
got like I was researching a little bit like the Irish shit, dog, like when I was watching Sons of Anarchy.
oh yeah,
You ever seen that show?
yeah, yeah. I haven't seen Sons of Anarchy, but in Peaky Blinders, you ever seen Peaky Blinders?
Nah, but I know exactly
All
what you're
right.
talking about. Yeah.
Well, then I'm gonna go watch Sons of Anarchy, and you go watch Peaky Blinders, and like the IRA, the Irish Republic nationals, basically are in Peaky Blinders, and that's just like strong Irish accent is just it catches you every single time. It's so unique.
Yeah, they talk about the IRA and Sons of Anarchy. That's crazy. You're the second person on this podcast that tell me to watch Peaky Blinders. So I feel like I just have to. It's getting
It's good.
recommended on my YouTube. At this point, I had to. I can't deny my fucking destiny.
It's crazy too. And then Tom Hardy becomes a part of it like 2 seasons in as just this badass rabbi. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tom Hardy. That was dope. You ever seen
Yeah,
that movie
yeah.
Warrior? Random ass shit. Warrior, dog. Watch it.
Warrior, no.
The
But have you
UFC
seen the
one.
one where he's the twins? He plays two roles.
Oh, bro, that movie's crazy, dog.
Insane,
Is it called
insane.
Legend or something like that?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. I believe it is. Yeah, and it's like a twin crime family,
yeah. That
and
shit
he
dope.
plays both of them. So crazy.
Random shit like this. That's funny as fuck.
No,
We
that's
could just
why
go on
we're
a
here.
random tangent and shit. Uh, but how was it going back to your childhood? Now you're in Florida.
Sure.
How was it being a little kid, dog, single child, growing up in where you grew up at the coast, beautiful as fuck, right? I'm guessing. Did you have a
Yeah,
lot of
dude. I'm
friends
not.
growing up? Did you go to one
Yeah, man.
elementary school, multiple elementary schools?
I bounced around a little bit. I mean, there's no way to like, sugarcoat it. I was raised very privileged, and I didn't realize that till I was older, right? But I mean, that's part of, privilege in America is
Yeah,
you're hidden from the fact that you are until you get a smack in the face, right? Which you need. Everyone fucking needs. And so, growing up in the coast, I mean, it was idyllic. It was a 20-minute bike ride to the beach, really skateboard maybe 15 minutes downhill. And, I spent my days fishing, surfing, playing sports, raised very strictly religious. So the transition into cannabis was an interesting one when that happened
yeah,
for sure. But, I was also thankfully blessed with two parents who, when it came to that time of being like, yo, that devil's lettuce stuff that you told me about, I'm going to be working on that for a career. Their whole thing raising me was always, we don't really care what you end up doing as long as you're honest with yourself and you do the best damn job you can or become the best version of whatever that is that you're physically capable of becoming. And so that kind of set me up with, kind of a confidence that I think a lot of people don't get early on, where it was like, maybe I'm not great at this subject in school or whatever, but damn, I'm killing it in this. And so I would really focus on that, which later would become a downfall for me when I went to a liberal arts college and you had to do well in a bunch of random subjects that I knew nothing about. But, early on, it definitely shaped me into, athletics. I was blessed to be around a lot of great, great programs. So I went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School, which is largely regarded, other than IMG, which is something completely different because they get to recruit and they give scholarships and stuff like that. St. Thomas is largely regarded as like the top NFL prospect creating school in the country over the past 20, 30 years. And so, I was always surrounded around top competition, which really gave me the edge when it came time to switch sports senior year and ended up at OU for lacrosse. I mean, it was D3, but Ohio Wesleyan to this day remains top 20 year in and year out for the lacrosse program. You know how serious it was there.
Yo,
So
bro,
yeah,
that shit was
yeah,
crazy, dog.
yeah. During season, I mean, those guys lock it in, right? But then the beauty of D3 is out of season. It's whatever the hell you want
Rowdy.
to do.
It's
So
rowdy,
yeah,
dog. It gets rowdy as
yeah,
fuck.
yeah. And so yeah, man, I grew up, surfing, fishing, going to school, playing a shit ton of sports, scraping my knee on every single stairs possible in Delray, trying to do kickflips, being a cool dude, as as you do when you're 12, right? And yeah, man, I really don't have much to complain about when it comes to raising, which is an absolute blessing, right? And I take that 100% into acknowledgement, right? And use it as like, even to this day in the industry I work in, right? There's a divide between, old money that exists in the cannabis industry, people that are transitioning from the black market and the new money, right? The multimillionaires that want to just own a ton of dispensaries for their value, so on and so forth. And where I immediately found my value in the industry was being the bong to boardroom guy, right? Being able to talk to the folks that are being affected still by the crime laws that haven't been changed in the states where it's legal, right? Or they haven't gone back and expunged all the records yet, whatever it may be. And then I can also go sit in a table or a room full of C suites and talk that talk too. So that's where I kind of find my calling in the industry to be, is like, especially now where I am currently, there's a lot of folks with a dream, folks with an idea, people that, like, a lot of states have opportunities for folks that have been previously affected negatively by the criminal justice system because of cannabis. And now there's social equity rounds where they get a lower cost entrance fee into the application process, so on and so forth. And so now I get to take all the skills I've learned from working on the high level of business and really help people with just like an idea and hard work ethic, right? Because that's really, I mean, in anything in life, to beat the system, it just takes a shit ton of hard work. And I get to see evidence of that in this industry every single day. It's awesome.
I know you work in the cannabis industry. When you were younger, before we met,
Yeah.
did you ever get to experiment?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. It was funny. I was 18. The first joint I ever smoked was at a slightly stupid concert when I think I was 16, and I ripped through like three of those things, and it didn't hit me at all. You
Yeah.
know how like sometimes the first time you smoke, it doesn't hit you at all. But I mean, the first time I ever did it was the most atypical, like, white surfer dude at a slightly stupid 411 concert while Amber was playing. So it's like it was phenomenal. But yeah, then I didn't really get back to it for like another year or so. And but once I saw it, I was like, okay. Because at that point I had, gotten drunk a few times at buddy's house and whatnot. I got to compare the two experiences, and immediately I was like, yeah, this is a lot better because I don't have a hangover. I still feel in control of like my thoughts and actions, and I'm not vomiting in the toilet like all those other idiots are. And so it very quickly clicked with me that this was going to be the better option for me.
And it makes food taste 1,000 times better, dog.
1,000 times better. And let me tell you something. If you're trying to bulk or something, or even if you're not trying to bulk, it will help you if you're smoking some strong sativas during the day and you just happen to drive by a Taco Bell. Whew.
Man, that shit sounds that shit sounds like a funny as detailed experience. Like it's true. I can see it being true.
We've been there. We've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. What about I know you say you were drinking and shit. Because I swear to God, dog, I remember my first time smoking. I was 13, dog, in middle school. I was like in seventh grade in an alley by my
Yeah.
middle school in an apple.
Yeah.
Like it was a
The
fucking
apple. Oh my
yeah.
God. We must have experimented with every single like
I swear
fruit
to
out there.
fool, bro, it was intense. Because I mean, what the fuck am I gonna get a pipe, dog? I'm 13. My homie's 13. Like
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it
No,
was
you
a
just go to the kitchen and hope that recently there was some more veggies or fruit stocked up. Shit, I can work with a
yeah.
pear.
Like we got it from like lunchtime. We saved it, got it from
There
lunch.
you go. Yeah.
Stayed in the backpack the whole day, dog, till after school and shit.
Oh,
Pound food took a couple, like, but yeah, like, yeah, it's true. You don't feel it. You don't feel it until like
not
a
the
couple
first time.
sessions
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. And then you like, whoop. But I'll tell you what, nothing gets the creative juices flowing more than like a, a kid who just came onto some weed and needs to find a way to smoke it.
Yup. All kinds of
it,
shit.
it, it it'll open the brain up for sure. But yeah, man, I wouldn't say I got introduced to it super young, but definitely. And the beauty of it too is my first interactions with it. Some people they have a bad first interaction. A buddy hands them a brownie or whatnot, and they freak out, and that scares them away
Yeah.
from it for like 2 or 3 years. I got always got the first like few times I ever tried it was in a very controlled environment in like a buddy's garage that I knew I was staying there for the night. Like where we were smoking, I was going to be sleeping on that couch. So I immediately like was very in a safe space, right? And some folks don't have that same experience. So like when I was working inside the dispensaries, a lot of what I had to do was like, especially in Ohio with a very strict medical program, the average consumer was a 55-year-old individual. And so a lot of them had bad experiences or they thought they knew what they were talking about when it came to what they needed in their bag at the end of the trip. And you kind of got to, guide them through like, look, whatever that brownie you had at San Diego State University in 1974, this is a little bit different than that. I can tell you
Yeah.
exactly how much is going to be in there. I can tell you to start low, go slow. And also, you're not going to get arrested. So let's take away that anxiety of the whole experience. And yeah, no, it's just so interesting. Every hearing, I've probably spoken to thousands if not more, patients in the industry and just hearing everyone's different approach, how they arrive to it, their fears about it, what makes them comfortable about it, what doesn't. It really is cool to kind of just be a part of that person's journey and guide them to a solution, that they didn't know existed.
Dog, I just you learn so much, fool, just because my experience with weed is way different. By the when we met, before we talk about how we actually like really met, what was like decision for you to go to OWU first? Like, let's get into that real quick. Like, real quick.
Yeah, no, great question. Great question. So, we talked about family a little bit early on in this, and I mentioned how I was an only child, but beyond that, on my mom's side of the family, I was the only grandchild. So it was my mom and her brother, their two parents, and her brother never had a kid, and I was the only kid in the family. So that side of my family is super close. And now kind of beautiful to add to what we were talking about earlier, what I consider my mom's side of the family is actually the massive family that she grew up down the block from in Buffalo. So they
Mm.
like keep in touch with me as if we're like just next of kin, right? So that's awesome. But anyways, so her brother was living here in Columbus, Ohio. And my sophomore year of high school, he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
Oh shit.
And when they went in there, they found a second tumor. The first operation was basically a complete miracle. The tumors hadn't ruptured, so they essentially removed what the doctors described as a softball and a grapefruit, two tumors from his gut, essentially. And, that changes everything about how your body works because from there on, he had the bags and a bunch of different things to keep him supported. And us being so close and small on that side of the family, it was really important to me because he continued to have cancer continued to show. It would just peak away. He'd be cured for 6 months and then show up again on another scan. And so he ended up battling it for 8 years. But it was when it came time for me to make a decision for university, I originally was trying to play college football, but I had back surgery when I was 17 years old. So they're like, yeah, no, you're not going to be playing football at the next level. You can play lacrosse if you want. So then it pretty much became a decision of what's the best school I can go to as far as program and academics while being close to Uncle Donnie and Aunt Faith, who were in Columbus, Ohio, because them not having a kid, even if I could get over there once a month or once every other week, just to help with something, a shelf my aunt couldn't reach or dropping off some groceries they didn't have the time to pick up. That was important to me, incredibly important to me. And I was blessed enough that Ohio Wesleyan offered. They were 20 minutes from their house in Gahanna, Ohio. And so it was the best of both worlds. And so, I ended up, enjoying Ohio Wesleyan for the complete opposite reasons, right? I went there
Yeah.
for the business school and the health and
Yeah.
human connect school and lacrosse. Ended up stopping lacrosse after 2 years because injuries kept piling up, and then failed out of college twice. And so, and then found my true like everything I gained as far as value from the university in my last 2 semesters there, and the fraternity, which I too, going into college, was completely like, oh, those frat guys, such idiots. I could never see myself freaking doing that. And then you walk in to find out at Ohio Wesleyan in 2014 and you meet a bunch of fucking goobers. And it's just the most entertaining group of eclectic individuals ever. And so, yeah, so that's, what got me up here, and, career kind of kept me here, right? After my uncle passed away, junior year of college, my aunt stayed with us for about another 3 or 4 years before she ran into health complications. But just being up here, being able to, be a drive away as opposed to a fly away is pretty much what brought me to Columbus, Florida boy in freaking middle of landlocked America.
We met, we got cool. At one point we lived down the fucking hall from each other.
Yep.
My junior year, I got to see Kobe's last game in your room. You weren't there. I was with Ian, my boy Sags. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, we got real cool and shared a couple bowls, shared a couple blunts, shared a couple moments and shit. But what besides like
Absolutely.
all the fun shit, dog, like what was like the biggest lesson that you learned at OWU?
Yeah, I think it was kind of twofold, right? It's one, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? Because if you had told me what it was, what my life or picture of my life looked like when I graduated Ohio Wesleyan, it was completely different from what I thought it was going to be going in, right? I thought it was going to be this 4 year athlete, go to law school afterwards or something bigger, stronger that I thought was bigger and more important, right? But by the time I graduated, I was already working full time in an industry I never thought I could approach at a level that I thought made it significant. And I made numerous amount of friends from walks of life that I never would have encountered before by going there. And so I think it's part of the whole journey and putting your head down and just trusting the process, right? You find something that you're passionate about, put your head down and just grind. The destination probably is going to look a lot different than what you thought it was going to be, but it's going to be there. And it's going to be beautiful, and you'll make the most of it when you get there. And so I think it was just kind of learning to roll with the punches, learning to be disappointed and be okay by disappointment, and learn how to adapt from that, grow bigger, stronger, and learn from it so that when failure hits down the road, you see it as a win because you figured out something that didn't work.
That was deep, dog. That was deep as fuck,
I got
homie.
you. You asked
Uh,
me to go deep, man. I got that.
and so you leave OWU, right? Um,
Mhm.
what was like socially before we get into your career with cannabis? Because I really want to talk about that, get more into it. First year out of college, food socially, how was that?
Weird, man. It was weird because I think like everyone has kind of like a phase of like the college blues, right? Where you think you can kind of live life similar to how you're doing it in college, but all of a sudden you've got a shit ton of responsibility. And now there's a lot of social pressures within friend groups that didn't exist when you guys were just, college students, such as, you know, tiffs among, and I wouldn't say tiffs, but dynamics that arise when certain kids are more successful than others. The desire for like everyone to stay in touch, but also wanting to grow as your own individual. So right out of college, it was a lot of, I lived actually just outside of Columbus, in a little town called now Winchester. And it was just weird because you think you've learned everything you're supposed to learn, right? From this university, this 4 or 5 years you just did there. And you all of a sudden learn that maybe 2 or 3 of the classes will actually apply. to your career. And so I think you very quickly learn that you didn't go to college really to learn the technical details. You went there to learn how to learn, right? And that was, I think, my first year out of college was a lot of that, learning how to learn something completely new very quickly, efficiently, and effectively, and understanding not only that you had to learn all this new information, but how to apply it. So it was a very good rude awakening, I'd say.
But you were still in the vicinity with the rest of the boys, right? Like you still got to
Yeah, I
talk,
mean,
chop it up with them and shit.
yeah, there was a good group that stuck around, and it was a slightly different dynamic too because I took 5 years because of the situation with my aunt and uncle up there. I had taken 2 semesters off at separate points throughout, so I did it in 4 years, right? But I did it on a 5 year track, and so a lot of the guys had already been in Columbus and gotten kind of their early,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
fresh
yeah.
out of college party life out of the way. And so I was coming in a year after that and kind of like,
Fresh energy shit. Yeah.
no, let's go. Are we still doing this? Are we not? And they're like, no, we kind of like have two or three of us have already moved away, and we're all kind of insurance agents now. So there, yeah, I think it was good because it taught me to become a lot happier with just a smaller group of guys, right? Like I still keep in touch. I chop it up with some of the boys that we knew, probably once a month every now and then, but I've got a very, very close group that I know I can call on at any point. And that I think that first year was a lot of realizing that you're gonna have a ton of guys that you'll be able to call up and shoot the shit with every now and then. But life forces you to pick a few really good comrades, right? To take the journey with because time becomes very valuable. You don't have as much free time and you just gotta be very selective with how you're spending it. Or you end up destroying kind of or working against what you're working on in your day-to-day career or journey or whatever that is that your calling is.
I completely removed myself from everything, everybody. I came back to the same world that
You did. You
I
did.
try
I
to
admired
escape.
that.
I try to
I
escape
admired
it
it.
and I just couldn't do it. I wasn't ready, after years of just like figuring it out. I realized I was always homesick, for I just couldn't accept it.
Yeah.
And when I came
No, I
back,
mean, I couldn't blame you.
it was like I explained to somebody, it was like when I was over there, I always knew that I couldn't really 100% fit in, but I had to play up this image like, oh, I'm from fucking South Central, dog, I'm fucking this and that. And then when I used to come back, I was like, well, I can't let them show that I'm a fucking frat boy. I gotta come back to being the same fucking fool that I left being. So it was always weird. And when I came back, it was always like, nah, fuck it, dog. Like I cut off everybody, left the group means. I was like, I gotta be here 100%. Because my homies didn't, all my people didn't have the luxury that I did. They didn't get to experience what I did.
Right,
So I was pretty much an outcast. So I couldn't talk about any really like stories from Owu, anything I learned because none of them would get it.
right.
You feel me? So when I went back this past September, dog, it fucked me up, dog. I'm not gonna lie to you, dog. I was real sad and happy. I was happy for everybody, especially my boy Chimpies. You got to do what he got to do. And it was fun to see everybody, and I was happy to see that people, doing their thing. But it was sad because it was like, damn, it could have been me. It could have, but
Yeah,
it
but it
wasn't.
still is you. You know what I mean? And I think both those groups would tell you really the lasting relationships that you forged at OWU were, built during the times when you didn't feel like you had to act that up, when it was just you, Willie, maybe some random ass like Z or someone in a
In the
room just
bag, just
and
smoking
right.
three
And,
blunts and
and,
shit.
and when your guard was down, that's when, we really like appreciated you, right? And we grew to, everyone looked up to you in one way or another. And it wasn't just because you would put off this persona. We loved when you went full out in the act,
That shit
right?
was funny, dog.
But
Yeah.
it was funny, it was hilarious. And people that didn't know, oh my God, like being the guy on the outside of the room, watching you like interact with someone that never been to the Fidel house and just watching them be like, Like just
Yeah,
some like
it was
random prep school
yeah.
kid from New England. Like, oh my goodness, it was so much fun. But I wouldn't say that like that was who we loved
Uh,
you for. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it was all those times that your defense was down. I think even your friends and family out in South Central, very similar. You know, like whether you're putting off a persona or not, I think at your core is where their love for you is. And so, you know, I think we're all glad that you've now found that balance, right, in the identity. And I think it makes you stronger for having both pieces, not weaker. You know what I mean? I think it gives you that type of dynamic that allows you to move through the world differently. And I think you should 100% see that as a value.
It was I used to have a lot of dreams, fool, after I left though with like fight out, like all the boys. And that September I got a closure, fool. It took me a long time. 7 years, fool, to find closure. And it was cool, dog, to see everybody. I know we only saw each other for like what, 2, 3 hours?
Yeah, I only
That one.
because it was like a last second thing that they were able to open up that party to other folks. But yeah, no man, it was great seeing you. I definitely I you could ask my fiance. I was talking about you for like 2 or 3 days. Like, damn, I'm just so glad he made it. I'm so glad to see he's
Yeah.
doing well. So glad to see he's just smiling still. You know, my man, that was just like the highlight of that because those other dudes I had seen in passing here and there, but seeing you was a special treat.
It was fun, dog. It was fun. It was a reminder of what life was once like, because it's so easy, especially like living in LA where everything's so fucking quick. It was
Yeah,
so fucking like refreshing, dog, and it was beautiful to slow down for a bit. Up until that point, I
it
was
does
like
that in
so
Ohio.
yeah, I was like sober for like 5 months up until that point. And so
Yeah,
like to able to like be like, okay, I do what I gotta do. So it was fun and it was I asked that the whole social question because like obviously like we only got to chop it up for a little bit, but it was mostly like on some drunk shit, at least for me, you know.
yeah, I was there with you.
And so
I'd enjoyed a few adult cocktails as well.
I've always wanted to, ask like all the boys, like, okay, so how was your life like after college? Because I mean, when
Yeah,
you're in there, like we have all these war stories, these fucking fun, rowdy shit, and that's cool. And we could spend 2, 3, 4 fucking episodes a person for do talking about it.
yeah.
But I never got to talk to y'all like after y'all left. And how was your life like? How was Ohio like life like? Because it's two different worlds and shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's cool to hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it might have sucked that like all the fools that you wanted to kick it with were already like couple years, like mentally, a couple. They were older, right? They're already starting to get their shit
Yeah.
together. At what point did you feel like, okay, I'm ready to move on from the post college depression and all that shit?
It was honestly pretty quick. Once I kind of like caught the jig of what everyone was doing and where everyone was at in life, and also realizing the incredible opportunity that was right in front of me, I quickly went into just full work mode, head down, probably 80 hours a week. I mean, just like if I wasn't physically at a facility or at the office, I was working on it at home because I mean, I was a blossoming weed nerd, right? And I was being asked to be that person. And so
Yeah,
it was like incredible because I had never thought in a million years, right out of college, I'd be in a position where I was able to literally, my day to day life and my day to day job, I was just so stoked about. And I really took that as a blessing and swallowed it into like my whole identity, you know? It just quickly became everything that I was about. So I kind of got over that just by the career, getting focused on that and seeing that there was a path in front of me. And that kept me focused and grounded and helped me really prioritize things. So definitely credit the career with that.
let's get into the career, dog. Because I'm
Do it.
interested. I don't smoke no more, but I've always been a big fan of the industry. I got some
Mm-hmm.
connects in the industry. Uh, when you're talking about the social equity programs, some of those people benefited from the social equity programs just because obviously that's the life out here, right? Uh,
Hey, if the government's willing to admit for once that they screwed up, you better take advantage of
yeah.
it.
So I know a couple people that benefited from that program a couple years ago. Um, Obviously, like LA, everything is so overdone. So growing up, I was there when the first dispensary started coming along. It was still like,
96.
yeah. So by like 2007, when I started smoking, shit
Mm-hmm.
started slowly building momentum. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes medicinal, right? So I'm in high school when it becomes medicinal. Now you need your card, right? So for me, getting weed was fucking quick, dog. Like black
Yeah.
market, medicinal, like dispensary shit, food, that voila is quick. I could get it whenever I want it.
Yeah.
Never a struggle. You know, then time moves on, oil comes around, shit starts
Mm-hmm.
blowing up. I go to college. I'm introduced to like real fucking outside of California way of living. People struggle to get some good ass fucking bud that came from over
Yeah.
here or Colorado or whatever.
Always did, dude. Always did. It was up until like I think in like 2017, like 90% of the weed in New York City was from California.
Bro, like it's just it was like that. And so it was I was privileged when it came to like the whole my experience with at least getting cannabis. It was easy as fuck. It was easy for me to experiment with edibles and all that shit, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Being able to get an edible dog at 16 was like a fucking easy as fuck, you know? Some strong ass
Around the
shit
same
too,
time,
dog. Some
around the same time,
strong ass shit. Yeah. Yeah.
that was right around the time I was sneaking the one friend of ours that had a beard into some corner store in Delray for some Four Locos or some shit.
Yeah, nah. It was cause like I also had like the benefit of growing up with like my older brother, my older cousins, and those fools, my older cousins were rowdy as fuck. So whenever I needed something, I would ask them, you know.
Yeah.
They could have been a better influence, and I talk about it with them, and it's like, hey, y'all was corrupted the fuck out of me, whatever. But I love that life, you know. But to be able to see the process of dispensary, medicinal, illegal dispensaries, and then now it's full blown legal. Right? I remember I
Yeah.
forgot where it was when Colorado first legalized it. I was like, yo, shit, we're next. We're next. And then it became legalized, dog. And I didn't step foot into a actual dispensary myself, a legal one, until like after I turned 21. And I was here like visiting one time. It was like, yeah, fool, just show your ID and you're straight.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of mind blowing that first time I remember mine as well. It's like, I know you say this is legal, but are you going to hold on to my ID? Are you going to give this back to me? And
Yeah,
you're like looking over your shoulders. And it's still, I mean, yeah, it's an eye-opening experience when you go into the legal dispensary for the first time and make that first purchase. It's like, you sure you're giving this to me? So I'm just gonna walk out the door now. You sure?
bro. I
It's
still had
wild,
anxiety. I still had anxiety. I was like, bro, these feds are gonna bust in through the door right now. I'm fucked, you know?
bro. That
But
means that you're still working with logic, and that's good.
you feel me? And then it was dope, you know, but for me, it was more of like my experience was the smoking aspect of it. And then like in 2020, I kind of got into like marketing and branding a little bit, and I got to work with certain people to help them start their own like their own business. And I would
Yeah,
be like, yo, you should do this, or you should start a podcast on weed, or you should, do this because you can't really do it on Instagram. You should do this, try this and that. So that was dope, but I was only in the marketing branding aspect of, and it wasn't about the wholesale or the distribution, it was retail, right? Because those are
right.
three different licenses, right? Or no,
Oh
production,
yeah,
distribution, and
there's
retail.
tons. There's cultivation, production, distribution, delivery,
Yeah. Okay.
retail. It depends on the state, right? So, like in Ohio, there's only cultivation, manufacturing, and dispensaries, right? And manufacturing, you're in charge of either getting the biomass, which is a fancy way of saying a ton of weed from somebody, or they're responsible for delivering it to you, and you're responsible for delivering it to the dispensary, so on and so forth. But in other states, like New Jersey, there are actually specific licenses for if you just want to be a distributor or you just want to be a wholesaler. and you don't want to produce, you can get that type of license. So every state has its own little quirks, obviously, but it's not federally legal yet. Every state, when they go legal, they think that they have figured it out. So it's
Yeah.
really annoying that none of them are just like, oh, look, so and so did a really good job. Let's just copy and paste that. No, they all think that they can reinvent the wheel, and they all run into the same issues. So it's just really state by state, unfortunately, still at this point.
I forgot where. I mean, for a while, I was just starting to research it. I remember, I think they said in Cali you could only get two out of the three licenses or something like that, made to due
Yeah,
to
and
like
it's
monopoly
also like
shit or something like that.
yeah, because like Florida just had a Supreme Court situation because they're fully vertical. So like if you're applying for a license in Florida, you have to have enough capital to build a cultivation facility, build a manufacturing facility, build a retail, and manage the distribution among all three of those networks, right? And
Hmm.
so that really limits who can get involved, right? Whereas a state like Ohio and New Jersey, someone like in any type of situation could theoretically just get a dispensary for their town, right? But in Florida, you have to come in with millions of dollars in capital to just show that as proof. And then you usually end up going millions over that. So it's just not a fair game for people. And so eventually hopefully Florida will adhere to that Supreme Court case and their next round of licensing will be a little bit more open.
See, it's a complicated world when black market industries become legal. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of red tape, a lot of like shit that goes on, a lot of politics get involved. People that were once opposed to it now have to fucking create the laws around it. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
weird. It gets real weird. That's why the black market still exists because it you avoid all that shit, all the extra unnecessary in between
I mean,
middlemen shit. You know?
yeah, look at New York City right now. I mean, they just made it legal, but they have no idea. There's like 1,300 operational illegal dispensaries in New
Yeah.
York City right now, and they have no idea how to convert them. And it's just an absolute mess. Yeah, no, it's interesting because like you on the same panel at any given conference, you could have some guy that's been growing in Northern California, Humboldt County, 62, and then right next to him you could have some corporate IT guy who it's cannabis. It's wild. It's a wild and super cool industry to be a part because you never know who you're going to meet or what they're about.
You have all this knowledge on cannabis, right? This might have to take a couple episodes, but um, how'd you get into it? Like, what was your introduction to it? What was the decision that you made?
Yeah, so I mentioned my uncle earlier. I got to fortunately see him benefit early on from the synthetic form of THC that doctors could prescribe at the time, even though it wasn't medical here in Ohio yet. In certain cases, they could prescribe this because it was synthetic. It worked around the legal system, right? And it would still deliver the nausea relief and a lot of other things that chemo patients were battling. And so I got to see him benefit from that firsthand, and that really changed my whole perspective. Started researching a ton of it. And my senior dissertation, I don't know if you remember Professor Glenn Bryan, but he was the absolute man to me. He was in the business department. And he essentially, I was like, look, I'm really passionate about this. I know you gave us this list of topics for our senior dissertation, but I'd love to do like a global cannabis outlook paper. Would you be cool with that? And he was like, yeah, you're just gonna have to sell me on why it's gonna be so good in your paper. And so the requirement was a 5-page paper. I ended up writing what, with all the research and everything, was a 40-page document
God damn.
studying 17 different countries, where they were in legalization, the benefits for it, so on and so forth. And so I got really early on into the weeds of regulatory systems, where we were within our own country, and where opportunities around the world were sprouting up. That paper essentially got me an interview with my first employer and who would become my first mentor. Through some friendships, I essentially had learned that this individual, his name was John Hondros, here in Central Ohio, was working on cannabis projects and had no clue really what it was going to entail. gave my paper to his mutual friend. He ended up giving me a call that turned into a lunch, that turned into an interview, that turned into a job offer before I even left the building. And he essentially hired me as a cannabis generalist was my job title because he had no idea what the heck to do with me, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, my skills were kind of all over the place, but what I was trying to prove early on was I was willing to just work my butt off, right? And so very early on, he put me on some projects. So I got to be a part of the launch of a CBD company that was directly marketed towards athletes. That's still operational today. I got to be a part of them opening a hemp farm, right? Got to witness that process. And then I got to be a part of witnessing and shadowing as they opened 5 dispensaries here in Ohio. And from that knowledge, help them apply for dispensaries in 2 other states. So
Mm.
I got experience really quickly writing applications and understanding the different laws and how to appeal to the different scoring systems. From there, they gave me an opportunity to essentially be the lead on this processing lab in Ohio that became the 11th lab to get open in the state. And we launched 2 custom brands out of there that are still being sold today. Both were processed goods brands, but I have the opportunity. They gave me a really long leash in the brand and product design, which was a blessing because I wanted to do something really unique, and we achieved that. So, other than your typical pods, cartridges, and concentrates, we also had a gourmet line of edibles because the whole goal of it was to teach people, like, look, you don't need to just eat a brownie. If you're making tea in the morning, we have infused local tea or
Okay.
local honey, right?
Yeah.
And if you're making toast in the morning or using butter at any point, we infuse clarified butter with THC and terpenes. And then we did the same thing even with olive oil. So it was just, we got to build a brand that in a lot of other situations where people are just throwing money at projects, you don't have the same type of creativity budget, right?
Mhm.
They were willing for us to try different things in order to really stand out from the competition. And we had to as a small operation, as we were going against Cresco's, GTI's, major players in the space that had 12, 13 states of operations already. And so, even as a small operator, we worked out of basically 1,800 square feet with a team of 10 people. And at our peak, we achieved a 90% market penetration. So 90% of the dispensaries in the state carried at least one of our product at that point in time. And it still was a very small program. And that was partially what led me to go out on my own into consulting before joining up with the firm I'm in right now, was because Ohio hit a plateau of patients, about 160, 180,000 registered and active patients. About 2.5 years ago, we hit 160. And for about a year and a half, my final year and a half with those teams, the levels had stayed the exact same of patients, but we saw 30 new competitors in the space.
Wow.
So everyone, it was just a dog eat dog world. And we were still able to keep up to a certain level, but achieving more market share became very difficult. The actual government here in Ohio wasn't doing a lot to make it easier for people to register. And so a lot of the, politicians' policies that were in place kept the program pretty subdued. And so I eventually, after that, even as grateful as I was for that opportunity, still am to this day, decided it was kind of time for something bigger. And so I wanted to expand my view into a national type of um, department and opportunities. And so I went out on my own. And for about 9 to 10 months, I was doing solo consulting, essentially writing applications, guiding existing businesses, some groups that were like, for example, in California, that were trying to sell their ancillary products, such as like terpenes, wraps, different types of products that would be sold in dispensaries here. I did some sales consulting for them. And so it kind of just kept me busy, giving me the opportunity to pitch a lot of different people. But what I kept running into was, we love what you're about, but you're a one-man squad, and our project needs quick turnaround. And I just didn't have the bandwidth or the incoming business frequent enough to build out a complete team and compete against some of these folks that had had a firm in the consulting space for 10, 15 years. And some of them had teams of like 30 people I was pitching against, right? And so basically I looked around, I just saw who the top competitors were in the space, started forming relationships because like I said, I started working full time before I graduated. So I hadn't updated my resume since like sophomore year of college. And so
Yeah.
I had to learn everything about like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all this stuff. And basically I got very fed up with it early on and just started reaching out to the top firms that I'd want to work for and trying to set appointments with them, so on and so forth, and eventually stumbled across the firm I'm with now, who was also just opening a position for a director of sales. And so I came in and I basically was like, look, I'm doing essentially what you guys are doing, just on a much smaller scale. And I believe that I can bring this type of, grind that I'm doing right now to a full scale business to this particular role and help this grow exponentially. And so the team over there, I've been with them for a little bit over a month and a half. At Can Aspire is the firm, and team has just been fantastic, giving me the opportunity to pursue different avenues because we do a very wide range of consulting services. So we begin on the very beginning, like we're doing a mom and pop in California right now that literally just saved enough money in order to have a business plan written that they can then use to go pitch investors to get a dispensary. But then on the other side of things, we're also doing fractional compliance. Basically, if a big company in a given state doesn't want to hire a full-time compliance officer for $100,000 a year plus benefits, we do that job for them remote for a fraction of that cost. And then we do everything in between, from marketing to application writing to compliance services, just about anything you can imagine when you're thinking like, okay, I want to go build a dispensary or manufacturing, or I want to start this distribution company in New Jersey. We can help the client from start to finish and help guide them once they're open as well. And so, that's a lot right there. But essentially, I got the opportunity to really touch a lot of different levels within the industry early on. And that gave me the opportunity to, gain this overhead perspective as opposed to just, if I had gone and taken a random job working in a dispensary, I don't know if I would have had the opportunity to see all of this from such an eagle-eyed perspective. And really, really fortunate and grateful for all of that opportunity that I've met thus far.
Hey, no, that shit is
It's a
crazy, dog.
lot. It
That
is a
shit.
lot. I know, man.
Telling
It's
you,
a
I'm just
lot.
used to the fucking. Hey, my boy, let me get a dime bag real quick,
Yeah.
fool. Let's hit the shop. But that's two different perspective, two different parts of the equation. But that's
Yeah.
dope, though. Like, um, to backtrack a little bit, when you were working at Han, right? That's the name of the company, Han
Yeah. Hone. And
or
then
Home,
also the other
whatever.
brand we launched was Wildflower. So those were the two process brands still being sold here in Ohio to this day, still making fantastic product. Team over there is awesome. But yeah, that was my first big leadership role was with that group.
I just think that when you said about the whole being creative, fool, I love that shit. I love
Yeah.
when you're able to be creative. I'm in a position now where I'm able to be creative, and I used to work at other positions with the youth where I was like boxed in into what I
Hmm.
could do.
Yeah.
Obviously we all have a budget. I understand that, but to have that creativity to be able to experiment and do these gourmet fucking
Yeah.
edibles or whatever. Fool, brownies are dope, fool, but they get tiring after a
There's a
while.
million of them, man,
You
and
feel
that's the
me?
thing. It's quickly becoming a crowded market, and we're getting to the point where now to stand out, you really have to do some phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
And so, just to compete, because, maybe 10 years ago, you could buy a license in Colorado and just sell flower, vapes, and gummies and be just fine. But that's just no, you can't win that game plan anymore, no matter the state, because these new states that are opening up, like when Minnesota goes rec, a lot of the people that will be enjoying Minnesota recreational weed have experienced Michigan recreational, right? And so they have a standard already. And so it's much harder nowadays if you're not doing things to stand out, to really exist in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I love that. That's why when I was studying marketing, dog, I read this book called Purple Cow by
Okay.
Seth. I think his name's Godin or Golden. And he
Oh,
talk,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know
Yep,
what I'm talking
yep.
about? He's like
I
one of the
know I
marketing
know
fools.
of him. I haven't read the book though.
Bro, that book is like the crazy. It gives the craziest like what all the information is dope. But the perfect example is like you're going down the highway, you see a bunch of cows, you're like, oh, that's a cow, that's dope. Then you just whatever, fool. Then you see
Yeah.
purple cow. Like purple cows don't exist. So you see a purple cow, fool, you're gonna tell your mom, your dad, all your homies. You're gonna tell that for the rest of your life, right? And
Yeah,
he's like, apply that method to your company or to your business, right?
I
Where you
love
stand
that.
out. And I was like, I love that shit when I'm gonna call myself a consultant, but like fools would always be like, hey, O3, I know you're into like the marketing shows. Like, fool, just stand out, just be different. Just be yourself,
Yeah,
be different, figure out what to do. Um, and just you'll be straight, you know. So like when you talk about the creativity, I was like, it was like a happy moment for me because it was like sometimes, dog, like the big money ideas are in those creative spaces, fool.
yeah,
Because when you're
absolutely.
just so focused on gummies and edible and like basic shit, yeah,
Yeah.
you get a fucking good money, fool. But like, what about a fucking taco? Like, you know, like a fucking,
Exactly.
you feel me? Like a taco,
No,
like there's some
exactly.
michelada, like a drink, like a beer, like you
Yeah,
could make anything, bro. Like you could get creative as fuck.
anything.
A pizza, all kinds of shit, dog.
Yeah, dude. And that's the thing cool that I think it is now becoming more popular across the country is like people figuring out how to work cannabis into their existing lives rather
Yeah,
than them going out of their way for cannabis, right? So like a lot of my buddies in the space are super, super excited and bullish on hemp beverages, right? Because
yeah,
hemp beverages find their way around a lot of regulations and they can get themselves into storefronts
yeah,
where the soccer moms or the 9 to 5 accounting dads are going anyways. And now, why would they ever need to go to a dispensary? Or if before they didn't want to go to a dispensary, now they can pick up a quick 10 milligram seltzer down at the store that tastes like an old fashioned made from all natural ingredients. You
yeah.
know, like
Simple,
and that's the thing that I think a lot of people are going to realize if they want to be successful in this industry. You have to find a way to fill a void within an existing space of a client, right? So a great company to mention is no free press, but Off Field is this hemp beverage company that essentially has built a brand around targeting athletes and runners, right? And their product backs that up. So rather than just being a typical Delta 9 THC seltzer, they have a combination in there of Delta 9 THC, CBG, and CBD.
mm.
And that combination together formulated emulates a runner's high. And so it's essentially allowing you to get to a mental space to allow you essentially to replace your pre-workout with an all-natural cannabis beverage and get incredible benefits from it. And
So
so I think
you
those
lock in
companies,
before you lock in, is
you
what you're
lock
saying.
in before you lock in, right? Instead of being that psycho at the gym with the ripped shirt that's snorting lines of
C4,
C4.
yeah.
Yeah. You can just have a nice little off field on your way to the gym, right? And it's just the companies that find their ways into people's existing lifestyles are the ones that are going to be successful because it's really tough to get a consumer to change something about their routines just for you.
Bro, I remember when shit was blowing up out here, Rice Krispies, brownies, cereal, fucking
Twix.
everything, for everything. I was like, what the
It's
fuck?
like, yeah, let's just go blatantly market to some 8-year-olds.
You know, like it was intense. And then like years later, like now as I got older and I came back, the whole like restaurant infused, right? Like the infused food.
Yeah.
Oh, it's infused with CBD. So you eat a fucking tortilla that was layered up with some THC butter or some, you know, like some random shit. I don't even fucking know about that world, but
Bon appetit.
some shit. Yeah, there it is, fool. Like some fucking gourmet infused restaurant that started popping up in like these little parts. You know, it's not still not like a
Yeah.
major thing, but you hear about them. And I was like, these fools are doing it right. It was an idea in my head I had as a kid. I was like, why don't people just open up like a fucking like like a bar, but they sell the hemp beverages,
Yeah. And now you got kava bars all over the country.
bro. Like it's insane. Like it just the whole world, the people that get creative. I tell this to everybody: if you're creative, well, you'll be here for a long time.
Hmm.
If you're
Yeah. If
creative,
you can
you
think
will.
of things differently than the guy next to you,
You'll
guy
be
or
here.
gal next to you,
Yeah,
you're
anybody,
gonna
you know.
figure things out.
Yep, that shit is that shit is beautiful to hear, dog. Because I mean, obviously in Cali, dog, like there's like a there's like the Cali ego where we think we have the best and everything, you know, and it might be true, dog, you know, but
I mean, ask any cultivator, they grow the best weed.
yeah, you feel me? Like we
Yeah.
just we have that ego in us, but the fact that I lived in Ohio and I got to see the what life was before the
hmm
shit the bills started getting
Before the
passed.
access was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember when the law got passed, I was like, these motherfuckers, dog, like these
They're
motherfuckers.
about to find out.
These motherfuckers about to find out. And I remember at this point I was still kind of like in contact with you. And I remember this for Gold started doing his shit with that his company. What was it?
Spender.
Spender.
Yeah,
And I was
he's
like,
still doing it. He and I should be catching up here pretty soon. It's pretty cool. We travel in a lot of the same circles, so it's always nice to catch up with him because he's also wicked smart, right? Just another wicked smart hard worker that's trying to do something crazy in the industry, and he's doing it.
I remember when I heard about his app, I was like, this motherfucker's smart.
Yeah.
This motherfucker smart as shit. Like this fool knows
Yeah,
what the fuck
he
he's
put some
doing.
shit together. Yeah,
He put some
absolutely. It's that's the thing too, is like there's so many ways to get involved in the industry, right? And no two stories are the same as far as how they got into it at first, right? So, a lot of people think like, oh, well, if I'm gonna go work in the cannabis industry, it starts as like a bud tender, or I want to go
with the
work
soil.
in a cult yeah
Yeah.
in a cultivation facility or a processing lab or whatnot. But what a lot of people don't realize, especially if they have like an existing career like in insurance or real estate or whatever it may be, that niche exists within the cannabis world and there's a demand for it, right? So real estate, for example, I know plenty of real estate agents that have gotten involved in the cannabis industry because when a state goes legal, real estate is really, really, really valuable because a lot of towns say, no, we're not going to allow you to operate here. And so, right off the bat, sometimes 50% of the state's territories is canceled out and you can't be there. And then you look, okay, how many square feet do you need for a cultivation facility? There's a very limited number of buildings. How many of those are available within the next year? Very limited number of buildings. And then like if you're a accountant, right? Like I know accountants that have gotten into the industry because the 280E tax laws and all the regulations around cannabis industries needs a lot of guidance. And if you're not following that to a Q, you can have your license revoked and that no matter how many millions or thousands of dollars you put into building that thing, state will take it away. They don't give a crap, right? And so there's so many different ways to work because it is so almost normalized to the point where if you have any background in a legitimate industry, it's being applied in one way or another to the cannabis world. And there's an opportunity for you to convert that existing knowledge into the cannabis world. And a lot of operators are looking specifically for that, not just someone that's worked in weed for however long, someone that is going to bring some structure and value that isn't normally built inside the cannabis industry from a major accounting firm or from a major software firm or whatever it may be. They're trying to get that outside cannabis industry knowledge into the cannabis world. And so that's why anyone who comes to me is like, how do I get into cannabis? It's like, well, are you passionate about cannabis or are you passionate about this as a career and you just want to be involved in cannabis in one way or another? Because a lot of people get into it as a political statement, right? They say, "Oh, I'm going to be the cool guy in my friend group that works at a dispensary because that's going to say something
Yeah.
about who I am as a person." And it's like, no, we still need like really good workers, not just someone who wants to say that they work at a dispensary, you know? So, I mean, some of the best dispensary managers I know are folks that are coming from a background of retail or like they worked for Abercrombie and Fitch, especially here in Columbus. A lot of people that work in the cannabis industry were recruited from some of these major firms in the city. And so there's so many different ways to become involved and no one should feel limited like, oh, I have to reset my career and take two steps backwards to go become this to work my way up in the cannabis world. No, lawyers, accountants, professionals, marketers, anyone who's applied value outside the cannabis industry, you can bring those lessons learned into this new world of cannabis.
Well, you can have specific like cannabis plumbers that have to do with the irrigation system
Well,
of
yeah, you
the
got people that deal with like the build out, the HVACs, the
yeah, all that
irrigation,
shit. Yeah.
mold control. I just had a conversation with a builder last week who does all that. They're building out the new facility for cookies in Hialeah, just outside Miami in Florida. And
Oh, that's
they're like,
right.
they handle all that stuff, right? But they
Yeah.
came from a background of non-cannabis, right? So they build greenhouses for strawberry farmers, for lima bean farmers, all this random stuff, and they just saw the natural transition, and so now they're involved in cannabis too.
For the amount of endless jobs. We're gonna name them some. You said marketing, lawyers, right? Cannabis lawyers.
Marketing, lawyers, insurance, real estate, packaging, anything. If you can sell something, there's a million people that want you in the industry.
Yeah.
Lights, electrical, pretty much anything that exists outside the cannabis world also generally exists inside of it, and they're looking for that value added, right? So even if you just worked at a American Eagle, or you worked at Journeys or something like that, where there's a big corporate structure and you're in a retail environment, you probably can work in a dispensary if you are a good worker in that space, right? But if you're a bad worker in that space, something magical isn't going to happen when you go to work in a dispensary, right?
Now you're gonna
It's
turn into this like fucking your value as a person isn't gonna go up, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, and you're not going to become better at what you're already not good at outside the world if you're not bringing it into the industry. So it's just, people
I
got to be
just
honest with themselves always.
I just think it's like the energy that cannabis still carries, like the little outlaw, like
Hmm.
rebel energy that is still within, the history of the actual like the weed business, right? Like
Yeah.
I was the drug dealer. Like there's still that level of people want to feel cool because they smoke weed or they're cool because they work on the cannabis industry. Like that might have worked, at the beginning, but at
Yeah,
this
it,
point,
it
it's just
was
a
cool a
regular.
while ago,
It's just regular now. It's just a regular job. Oh, I
right?
work in the cannabis industry. Oh, that's cool. All right, I'm a fucking insurance agent for fucking I don't know
Yeah,
nationwide dog or whatever the fuck.
right. No, it's funny because I obviously was very proud of being involved in the industry. So like the first year, I would always just say like, yeah, I work in cannabis, and I thought it was really cool, right? But now I'm to the
Yeah.
point where if people ask me what I do, I just say I'm a consultant. And if they ask more, I'm a cannabis consultant.
Yeah.
And then usually if I get to that point, I'm just like, this is going to be like 10 minutes of me explaining this to you. So
Oh, what is that like? You know what I'm saying? That's
yeah, exactly. And like I'm always down for a lesson, but sometimes I'm just here to drink a beer, man. Like I don't want to
it
talk to
just
you about it.
the word
But
cannabis just triggers people somehow. Some people
they're
get
just
like
so curious about it. I love that too. And I'll always, shoot the shit with someone about it. But it does like sometimes I'm like, man, if I just said I'm an accountant to someone, they're not asking me any other questions.
yeah, they're not. They won't, bro.
Yeah.
They literally won't. And they say that's crazy, dog. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it's that
exactly.
energy that cannabis carries, dog. Like there's still like an outlaw. Maybe it's because it's still federally legal, illegal. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it
And then
becomes
I think
legal.
also people view it like a lot of, I mean, in our society today, everyone's trying to get rich quick, right? And I think there's still that belief that isn't true. Let me repeat this for anyone listening, is not true that you can get rich quick in the cannabis industry. It does not work like that. The first few years, or not the first few years, but probably maybe from like 2000 to 2014, if you were able to get a license in one of those states that became legal then, there was a chance you could flip that license for some value, right? Nowadays, you can't just come to the table with an application fee. You have to be involved, show proof of concept, be selling products for 3 or 4 years on a massive scale before anyone will look at you wanting to buy your business.
That's
And
crazy.
so a lot of people are like, oh, I hear at least 5, 6 times a month, I just have someone approach me like, hey, I have this extra X amount of dollars. Who do I give it to so that it becomes more valuable in 3 years? I'm like, well, this is a little bit more detailed of a process than me just telling you to like go buy Bitcoin and hope it hits the moon, right? This is a legitimate business. You have to become involved. You have to hire people. I'm going to need your full-time commitment for 2 to 3 years. And they're like, no, no, I'd rather not. And, I mean, there are funds and stuff in the industry where people can take that kind of money, but it's still very difficult to do what people used to be able to get away with 10 years ago.
now you're a consultant, right?
Yeah.
You say you're the eagle. You have an eagle's eye view of a certain. Well, you probably understand a lot of the other uh, non-growing parts of the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
And you say you were working solo, and now you work for a firm.
Yep.
What is like your current goal at this firm,
Yeah.
personally?
Great question. So, without putting too much numbers to it, is pretty much find new operators that have either recently applied or considering applying into any of these industries, whether it be from dispensary to cultivation and everything in between, and essentially increasing the success rate of them. Because generally, if someone goes about applying for a license, building their business plan, everything, maybe they'll get the license, maybe they'll win, but there's no guarantee that they've built themselves a good foundation for 2 to 3 years from now. So one of my big goals is explaining to people who want to get into the industry the difference between price and cost, right? What's the price today to get this done? But what's the cost if I don't do it 3 years from now?
Hmm.
So if I don't have great compliance steps in place, employees that are trained on my SOPs properly, 3 years down the road, none of this can mean anything, right? So are you willing to take a little bit more investment or to limit your gamble into what's already scary, generally unknown environment, right? Because every state is different and every version of that state's legislation is different. So the companies that were legal in Ohio or legal in Michigan when it went medical, their life is very different now that it's about to go recreational. And it's a completely different, and it's not a completely different business model, but you got to scale quickly. And there's a lot of things that now have to be considered that didn't before. And so with an industry that's constantly evolving, just like in any other industry, the people that are going to be most successful are those that admit they don't know everything and are willing to bring in people that understand the risk, where you can succeed, where you can save time and money, as opposed to just having the pride and doing it on your own, which thankfully a lot of companies are starting to realize as it becomes harder and harder to operate in the industry, that they do have to bring in the expertise. And okay, maybe instead of me thinking I can hire or manage all my hiring and manage all of this with these 3 full-time employees, I can cut that overhead and bring in this individual or this firm to take care of all that for me, right? And it's just like any other industry that has finally had modern approaches to it, right? So cannabis is still catching up, right? I mean, we're still doing studies in medical schools that Israel did 20 years ago, but we feel the need to do it here to prove that Americans proved it or whatever it is, right? So that doctors here feel comfortable. And and so it's just constantly changing. And my main goal is just to make sure that people are ready for that change, or they're ready for the commitment, especially the financial commitment that they're about to make, and that they're taking care of it and protecting it for the long term.
That's why consultants are important in this industry.
Hmm.
Super important. Telling you, fool, where I come from, easy, dog. You grow some shit, you sell some shit, you smoke some shit, you spend your money, and you
Yeah,
repeat the process. So much other shit now, dog, that's included in the whole. Now that it's legal, ooh, so
yeah,
many fucking paperwork, so much paperwork, so many licenses and whatever the fuck.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, you gotta record when you throw out your trash. Like that's something that like a lot of
what the
people don't even
fuck?
realize. Yeah, like if you're disposing of biomass, so for example, here in Ohio, when we were done extracting the flower, right, there's still left because you're not like it's not gone. You're just taking the cannabinoids from it, right? And you're left with this n no longer activated flower, right? And you have to mix it 50% with sand before you can throw it out, and you have to record that you did so. And so every single time you throw something out, you got to record it. Like there's just little
What
things
the
like that
fuck?
that people don't even realize when they get into it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna figure it out or whatever." And it's like you can, but rather than, spend X amount of dollars with us here in the beginning so that you don't have to spend double that a year from now to remediate it or change the mistake that you screwed up, right? And so it's just a matter of explaining that value to someone who may be very, very proud for making the decision to get involved in the cannabis industry in the first place, that there might need to be a little bit of hand holding, and that's okay. You
But
know?
slap people into reality, like, nah, my boy, you ain't getting rich today, dog. You gotta
No,
record yourself throwing the trash.
not happening. He's not
That's
getting
just
rich,
fucked up.
and you're gonna have to give some great benefits to bring in great employees to keep good records, because recurring revenue is the only thing you got in this industry. You're not gonna have a million first time customers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's just like, yo, you got to protect this. Just like any other business, you got to take steps to make sure you're going to be successful.
Final question about cannabis before we wrap up the plática, my boy. And
Hit
this
me.
is a question that's like, for me, it's real important for me to ask just
Hmm.
because, like, of where I come from and seeing a bunch of my people's, like they've had their own experiences of being arrested and being cited, and myself, like, close to experiencing certain things. Uh, you personally, I'm not gonna ask for your firm or your previous owner, like, job or whatever perspective. What is your responsibility in giving back to the community?
Yeah.
Where do you feel like you could be a good, an aid or an ally in the criminal justice system? Or I don't really fucking know how they do it. Do they pay people, or is there like settlements and shit like that? Where is your, like, social responsibility in giving back to a community that was negatively affected by previous laws and policies and shit like that?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I love that you asked that. I think there's a lot of different ways that I have to, be responsible for my privilege and utilize it in a way that privileges others. Right. And I've always kind of had that mentality of like, if you're privileged, you better freaking use it for the right reasons, right? And so I'm blessed enough to be in rooms that I know individuals that may have came from a different background but have the same exact work ethic as me or have accomplished nearly the same things may not be in those rooms for another 5 years or so. And so it's when I had mentioned the whole like bong to boardroom mentality, right?
Yeah.
You got to be representative of who you're actually serving, right? Because it's one thing to just sit down in a room with a bunch of folks that want to make money and tell them how to do it. And it's another thing to tell them how to do it responsibly in a way that's actually going to benefit the communities that they're building these businesses in, so that we're not just going to have like an Olympic situation where someone comes in, gentrifies a corner, and then moves out in 3 years because they don't like sales, right? Everything we're doing, and I think this goes into a lot of governments that have recently gone legal, have done a better job giving me and folks like me an opportunity to help people that have been previously wronged with these social equity rounds by, giving them an opportunity to get in earlier and whatnot. And I think, my responsibility in that situation is to do the best job I can to, one, make sure anyone in that state that's been affected by those previous unjust laws knows about this opportunity, and two, when we work with them, to do it in such a way that sets them up so when the rest of the rounds come in and the GTIs and these bigger animals come in, they can remain successful because they've established an identity in their community that community is going to support. And beyond that, I'm not one to say like I'm an expert in criminal justice. I didn't go to law school. I'm not an attorney. And, so there's a lot of different ways that I know I can use my skills to make sure people aren't left behind, and conversations I can bring up at a table that normally wouldn't be brought up, and make sure, that every voice is being acknowledged. Because in the end, if you're not being socially responsible with your business in 2024, that business is not going to survive,
Yeah.
period. So whether you want to view it as a good investment or a good commitment to a community, both have to exist for this thing to be successful. We've seen the big dogs go out there. I mean, it's sad anytime someone loses their job, but look at like a MedMen, right? They were all over the place. They were huge, massive, and recently they've completely shrunk back, they got into bankruptcy. And it's because they went out there and they tried to put their picture of what retail cannabis should look like onto every single corner, not accounting for what cannabis looked like on that block for those
Hey,
people
bro,
already there,
hey,
you
you
know?
telling me, dog? Hey, my boy, I seen them bitches billboards everywhere. Dog, I was like, man, these
Yeah.
motherfuckers don't look like this right here. Like, I'm
No,
talking about like it was a doctor with a fucking with a joint or some shit. I was like, bro, look around. There's no doctors here.
no, no.
You feel me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think and it comes down to a bigger reality in the world, which is just brutal honesty applied to everything. As if you're brutally honest about any question, you're likely going to see you're wrong in it quicker than you'll see you're right. Right.
Mm.
And so it's like you're sitting at these tables and people are like, oh, well, I hear that this town's developing at a good pace. And so let's knock down this old drugstore that's been owned by a family for 50 years and put a dispensary here. It's like, let's take a step back because you're going to want those people in that community to actually want to shop with you. So
Yeah.
what the hell are you going to do to give them that? Because in today's consumer world, consumers have the right to ask that question. What have you done for me? What are you doing for my community or the causes that I care about? And now more than ever, the consumer's empowered. And that's really the cool thing about the cannabis. And one of the cool things about the cannabis industry is that it's the only massive industry that will be built in modern consciousness. And what I mean by that is like we now have been talking about equal opportunity in the workplace for 30, 40 years pretty intensely. We now have a lot of laws in place to protect that. Not all of them are doing a great job, but they're there, right? And at least it's on people's minds. Whereas if the cannabis industry had blown up in the 60s or the 50s,
Oh,
I think it would look a lot like the current liquor agencies,
yeah.
right? It would look a lot like the liquor world. Whereas today, by this happening now, in this period of time with people thinking about these topics, we're not always going to get it right, but we're going to get it right a lot more often than we would have done in the 80s, the 70s, the 50s, or before then.
Hey, props to you, dog, because questions like that get people scared, dog. Right? Social responsibility, because people, the word privilege is also like very triggering to some people. Um,
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, right? But you talking about it, just you being aware, and just you representing, like you said, helping people who feel like their voices aren't being heard. That's you could only do so much as a person, right?
Sure.
But you being in a place as a consultant, like you're a little like checks and balances person too, right? You could be like, hey, dog, like that's cool, but that ain't gonna fly right here, dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
The mentality to
exactly.
have like that, and being um in places where you could do that, that in itself is a social responsibility. Because people
Yeah.
think like, oh, I'm just gonna donate money to people's like these campaigns, and it's cool. I'm not gonna say that's not that's
That's very
that works.
rarely, yeah, very rarely do people do that though nowadays, unfortunately, for that actual cause. It's
Yeah,
usually to win favor over whoever that individual is, right?
correct.
And yeah, no, it's just a unique situation because I think also a question that a lot of people get uncomfortable with when they're talking about privilege is how to utilize it, right? Because there's some folks that, grew up in freaking the richest of the richest, Hamptons, Nantucket, whatever. And their big way to go save the world is they're going to become, a traveling volunteer and build wells, right? I don't discourage anyone from doing that. But what I think another question needs to be considered is how can I use this privilege to not only satisfy my own self need to help other people, but do it in such a way that I wouldn't to help them that I wouldn't be able to if I came from somewhere else.
Yeah,
Right? Because like if you're just, you're in a situation, you're like, it's 17, 18, I'm gonna go do charity work for the rest of my life. Great, I commend you. But I guarantee you, if you had found a way to utilize the situation at your hands to improve yourself, to get yourself to a place where you have a ton of influence and decision-making ability, you can impact more people. And so it's an interesting thing because I think a lot of people get tied up in guilt when it comes to privilege. And it's like, yes, you need to acknowledge it. You need to be conscious of it, but you also need to be conscious of its power to help others. But to do that, you have to become the best version of yourself based off the opportunity you've been provided. And I think a lot of people kind of cop out first because they can't get past the guilt and they go and do something that is commendable, but could not be as impactful as they possibly could be had they
Yeah.
stuck with something a little bit longer.
They all want to become Mr. Beast and shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's
They
like
all,
Mr. Beast didn't know he was gonna become Mr. Beast. So I think
yeah.
if you think he's gonna become, you're gonna become that. I doubt it's gonna
Hey, that's what they say. Like,
happen.
oh, yo, Mr. Beast did this. All right, fuck it. I'm rich. I'm gonna do the same shit, and I'm gonna get
Yeah.
praised for it. Like, nah, my boy.
And then you're missing the point
Yeah,
too, right? The greatest honor, I think, is when you find out just how much of an impact that someone made after they die, right? Because if it's all loud and praised and headlines during your life, I think you're missing the point of the whole situation, right?
I think that's why Mr. Beast gets like good recognition because like they saw from the beginning,
Hmm.
right? And he wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like over the top. Like I'm gonna do this for my ego shit. Only he
Yeah.
knows. I don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
And here's the thing I stand with that too is like sometimes we can give people a hard time for certain levels of ridiculousness. But at the
yeah,
end of the day, if Jeff Bezos gives $100 million to some foundation, that's $100 million in that foundation didn't have before. Like
yeah.
sure, we can talk about him being the bane of society forever, but at the end of the day, that's 100 mil. Like,
You always
that's
gotta take the good with the bad, dog.
yeah,
Always.
exactly. Just learn to balance and try to keep some sanity, right? That's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, I think if whatever you're doing, even if it's a minor part, be to give back because cannabis has destroyed families, it has destroyed communities.
Yeah.
People have gotten killed over it, right?
Hmm.
We've
To
seen
this
this
day, people still do.
to
It's
this day.
unfortunate, but it's still happening. I mean, people are getting arrested. I saw an article the other day. Two kids got arrested because they were smoking one joint in Iowa at a park, and some grandma called, right? Like, it's still happening, and the effects of what it did are very, very deep in our society still. And I think it's going to be a few generations before we start really feeling like this is in the past.
And just by you like coming onto this platform and talking about like all these other jobs that are available, like to open up people's like idea of what they want to
Hmm.
do in life is also it's responsible. You're doing a lot of responsible things. Like I said, that question is tricky, food, because like when people think of social responsibility, the first thing they think about is like, oh, I gotta go be an activist. I gotta go do it.
Hmm.
I gotta be a part of the marches. I gotta put like, I gotta raise as much awareness as I can. That's cool, a little bit of everything. There's a lot of people in the same industry that could join forces and you could be the fool that opens up people's minds. This other person could be the person that donates the money. This other person could be the person that is the lawyer, that hires
Hmm.
free lawyers to go pay for people to get, to pay their bonds and shit like that. So just that's dope, dog, that you're actually taking the time to do something and paying it forward. Because it's so easy to just get lost in the sauce, dog, and like I'm
So
getting
easy.
money, dog. Like I don't give a fuck. Like I'm a
Yep.
cannabis worker on me. Like it's just easy to do that shit. So
Yeah, and
easy.
and that's the thing too is like I don't think getting back to like the whole get rich quick, like I want to stress this to everybody. Like if you're getting in the cannabis industry and you know what your skill pays outside the cannabis industry, it's not going to pay much more inside it. I promise you. Like a lot of people are like, oh, if I could just find a job doing what I'm doing, but for a cannabis industry, that's going to be two times the pay. No, especially in 2024, most cannabis operators are tightening their belts, trying to spend a little bit less. And so you really gotta be ready to put in the same work and grind even maybe a bit harder because you won't be as known, but the expertise will be there and your value will be very, very noticed.
Well, thank you, my boy. Thank you for joining the Platica. Platica is Spanish for conversation.
Been an
Um,
honor.
but before we finish, I do have one final question for you.
Hit me.
And it's the question I always ask in the introductory Platicas to end. If you could talk to the future P Dog, the future pet, what would you ask him?
I've thought about this for a while because I'm someone that can be very obsessed with the journey. right? And we were talking earlier about what was one of the things I learned from Ohio Wesleyan. It was, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, because the destination, while maybe in the same realm as what you picture, is not nearly ever what you originally think it's going to be. And so I guess I'd be curious as to which avenue worked out, right? Because right now, within the current job I'm working like 17 different avenues, right? Whether it be going after municipalities to give them guidance on legalizing within their municipality, whether it be working specifically with small owners. And then in my own personal life, I bought a house a bit a year ago that I've been renovating on my free time that will become the base of hopefully the real estate foundation that I can leave behind for my kids. And so I've just got so many hooks in the water right now that I'd be curious which one works out, right? But then I take away from the excitement, right? But I guess the whole thing would be just learning where to put all the cards, right? Because I think anyone who's ambitious puts a lot of cards out on the table in different stacks, right? And they're trying to do it all. But then when you really find one that clicks, that's the rocket ship, right? And so early for me, it was finding my way into cannabis. Then it was applying my knowledge in consulting, right? I'm curious which of these next four or five is going to be the one,
Mm.
right? And so I'm just curious about that. I'd love to know that. But then at the same time, I don't, I kind of want to just discover it for myself. So I think it's just a question of, are you happy? And if the answer is yes, then I know it all worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Well, like I said, thank you for joining the Platica. That was a beautiful answer. It was just you're the first of many of my Owu connects that I'm finally gonna start reaching out to and inviting them to have a Platica, a conversation, and record it and upload it on my YouTube. I call it a podcast, fool, but it's just like it's a digital diary talking with me talking to my peoples and the people I care about, people I haven't talked to in a minute, and just on the final point of going back and seeing everybody in September, like it was beautiful for me, dog. Like, and to see everybody, you know, outside of college. I know for a long time I struggled to move past college. Like
Hmm.
I would dream of doing a keg stand for even at 27, 26, wishing those days would come back. I feel like my post college depression lasted so long, and it was good closure.
Hmm.
And after that closure, I feel like now I'm comfortable doing this to be
I
able
love
to
it.
talk to you fools in a uh outside of Owu setting, right? Obviously, it's
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful memories. I'm telling you, we could talk about playing taps, fool, at 2 p.m. Bush inside of a fucking styrofoam cup. OT
The list
Genesis,
goes on and on.
OT Genesis bumping in the back. Like, there's so many of those, bro. It's
So
beautiful to talk
many.
about it.
And now we're just old dudes.
Yeah. So so you're the first of my Owu connects in random. Like I said, I could have hit a Willie, I could have hit a Billy, I could have my boy Trizzy. I was like, let me talk to this for P Dog.
Let's go. Let's go.
So
Well, it's been an honor, my man. I loved it. And yeah, I see this just as that, man. Just us catching up, shooting the times. And
yeah.
anytime you want to do it, happy to jump on, bud.
Yeah, dog, it's just cannabis. Like I said, I don't smoke no more. It's something, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm a cannabis enthusiast. It's a certain industry that I feel like if I learn a little bit about it, man, I could help my peoples out here.
Absolutely.
You
And the
know.
more the more knowledge I can share with you, any way I can help, obviously, you know where to call me, brother.
And if you're ever in LA, dog, hit me up, fool.
Oh, you know it. I'll be there probably end of the year for an event, so I'll
Oh,
hit you up for sure, brother.
shit. Yeah, I'll let you know, dog. We'll meet up. I work in Santa Monica now, so we could, you know, I'm not gonna
Gives
tell
me
you to come to,
excuse.
I'm not gonna tell you to come to South Central, fool, but we go to Santa Monica, dog.
Hell yeah,
All right.
brother. All right, my man. Hey, I appreciate you. And yeah, this has been awesome.
But Other than that, if you're listening and watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, the notification bell so you know when I drop another video. I'll see ya when I see ya. Don't forget to love yourself today, all right? Adios. Stepping out the door with some fresh 90s, the old whites, the drips nice. Yeah, I'm icy, but I don't wear eyes. Still a fool that looks fly. Got my button down on, let's get lost in the